Languages of the scriptures. Understanding the matters of language, also called linguistics, when we speak about the subject as science, is vital, particularly if we want to find out in what way peoples are related to one another. This principle is true also when we deal with scripture. That all people in antiquity lived in isolation and ignorance is a misconception. In fact, tradesmen, seafarers and soldiers were on the move at all times, from country to country and even to faraway continents. Their language and scripture travelled with them, and so did their culture, their beliefs, their religion, their laws, their civilization. History can only be fully understood when we always take this fact into consideration. Hieroglyphs or logographic scripts. A hieroglyph, Greek for sacred writing, is a character of the writing system of ancient Egypt, China, as well as the Olmec, Maya and Aztec civilizations. Logographic scripts that are pictographic in form. Hieroglyphs or logographs represent the meaning of a word rather than its mere sound as in alphabets. The Egyptians were among the first who invented the pictorial script in around 350 BC. This is different from the pictographed script, because they represented like birds, people, etc. They looked like that, whereas the Aramaic pictographs, etc., were sometimes looking like a person's head. They're mainly like the shape of a tent or something like that. There's a difference between the two, between pictographs and the Egyptian pictorial script. So the Egyptians were among the first who invented the pictorial script in around 3500 BC. They marked the beginning of Egyptian civilization. Though based on images, Egyptian script was more than a sophisticated form of picture writing. Each picture or glyph served three functions. First, to represent the image of a thing or action. Second, to stand for the sound of a syllable. And third, to clarify the precise meaning of adjoining glyphs. Writing hieroglyphs required some artistic skill, limiting the number chosen to learn it. Only those privileged with an extensive education, i.e. the pharaoh or the kings, nobility and priests, were able to read and write hieroglyphs. Others used simple joined up versions, demotic and hieratic script. Hieroglyphs are difficult to learn as they consist of about 5,000 characters. So by the sounds of it, you had to be like an artist to do it. Very, very talented. A cuneiform script is a system of writing invented by the Sumerians in Mesopotamia. Well, that's actually not their real name, because this IA, this ear, is in prefix. It's from the Greek. So they probably would have been like the Shinai or something like that in the Aramaic. The name cuneiform means wedge-shaped. Cuneiform was the most widespread and historically significant writing system in the ancient Middle East. Its active history comprised the last 3 millennia BC. Its long development and geographic expansion involved numerous successive cultures and languages, and its overall significance as an international graphic medium of civilization is second only to that of the Phoenician, Greek, Latin alphabet. The origin of cuneiform may be traced back approximately to the end of the 4th millennium BC. It was of Sumerian origin, a language and people of unknown ethnic and linguistic affinities. When the Semitic language Akkadian became the chief language of Mesopotamia in the 3rd century BC, it took cuneiform script as its alphabet. Cuneiform script was used in the entire ancient Middle East, including Judea and Israel, and we can be sure that the ancient Jews read the tablets, and Akkadian wisdom literature became the foundation of the Torah, the books of Moses. Alphabetic script or alphabetic writing system. Most European, Semitic and Indian alphabets can be traced back to the Phoenician and Aramaic alphabets, which were better developed versions of the North Semitic alphabet. The Phoenician and Aramaic alphabets spread over the Mediterranean area by Phoenician and Jewish traders. The Greeks embraced this invention first, then the Etruscans, followed by the Romans. The earliest Phoenician inscriptions that has survived is the Ahiram epitaph at Byblos in Phoenicia, dating from the 11th century BC, and written in the North Semitic alphabet. The colonial Phoenician script evolved into the Punic and Neo-Punic, or New Punic, or Modern Punic, alphabets of Carthage, which continued to be written until about the 3rd century AD. Punic was a monumental script and Neo-Punic a cursive form. The Semitic languages of Scripture. The Semitic languages have a history that is quite well documented. Written records documenting languages belonging to the Semitic family reach back to the middle of the 3rd millennium BC. Evidence of Old Akkadian, also spelled Akkadian with 2 C's, and sometimes called Assyrio-Babylonian, so that means it would have been a mixture of Assyrian and Babylonian, is found in the Sumerian literary tradition. By the early 2nd millennium BC, Akkadian dialects in Babylonia and Assyria, so there's still both Greek names given, right? Because of the N prefixes here, IA, on the end of these two words, had acquired the cuneiform writing system used by the Sumerians, causing Akkadian to become the chief language of Mesopotamia. Akkadian spread across an area extending from the Mediterranean Sea to the Persian Gulf during the time of King Sargon of the Akkad dynasty, who reigned from about 2334 to about 2279 BC. The Akkadian language divided into the Assyrian dialect, spoken in northern Mesopotamia, and the Babylonian dialect, spoken in southern Mesopotamia. At first the Assyrian dialect was used more extensively, but Babylonian largely supplanted it and became the lingua franca. That's a trendy language, right? Of the Middle East by the 9th century BC. During the 7th and 6th centuries BC, Aramaic gradually began to replace Babylonian as the spoken and written language. Other Semitic languages are Hebrew, Phoenician or Punic, Coptic, Ge'ez or Amharic or Ethiopian, Syriac, Moabite, Edomite and Arabic from around 1200 BC. Most of those languages adopted the Phoenician Abjad alphabet. The sound system of all these Semitic languages is very different from that of English and the other languages of Europe. It includes a number of distinctive guttural sounds, pharyngeal and uvular fricatives, and a series of velarized consonants pronounced with accompanying constriction of the pharynx and raising of the back of the tongue. There are only the 3 vowels A, I, U, which can be either short or long. Most words start with a single consonant followed by a vowel, and long vowels are rarely followed by more than a single consonant. Clusters containing more than 2 consonants do not occur in the language. The languages also make use of a wide range of prefixes and suffixes which act as subject markers, pronouns, prepositions, and a definite article. As most Semitic languages are written only with consonant letters, there are no letters for the vowels. Makes translating ancient text a difficult task. In modern Semitic text, writers use little dots and dashes as vowel marks. A Semitic word is composed of 2 parts. First, the root, which generally consists of 3 consonants and provides the basic lexical meaning of the word. And second, the pattern, which consists of vowels and gives grammatical meaning to the word. Thus, the Hebrew root, ZDK, combined with the vowel pattern AI, gives Zadik, the righteous one. The Arabic root, SLM, can be combined with the vowel pattern AA, which gives Salam, peace, but it can also be combined with I-A, which gives Islam, or I&A, which gives Islam, and this means submit, surrender. This opens the possibility to play word games with deliberate, ambiguous, ironic or sarcastic contents. As SLM means peace and submit, one can say You surrender, then there is peace. The Aramaic or Aramaean language is a Semitic language of the northern central group, originally spoken by the ancient Middle Eastern people known as Arameans. Aram was an ancient country in today's northern Syria. They usually name their geographical locations after their forefathers or their fathers. The Aramaic or Aramaean language is a Semitic language of the northern central group, originally spoken by the ancient Middle Eastern people known as Arameans. Aram was an ancient country in today's northern Syria. Also, you'll see his name in the genealogy account in Genesis. And that's where their language came from. It extended eastwards from the anti-Lebanon mountains to beyond the Euphrates River. Aramaeans built numerous kingdoms, including Damascus, and Aramaeans ruled the Assyrian Empire. And with this empire, the language spread rapidly to all parts of the Middle East and soon also to Egypt, Persia and India. Aramaic was the main language of Israel and Judea, not Hebrew. Aramaic is thought to have first appeared among the Aramaeans about the late 11th century BC and was most closely related to Hebrew, Syriac and Phoenician. The first writing system was a Phoenician abjad, and from the 8th century BC it was written in a script that slowly derived from Phoenician. Aramaic developed further into Syriac, also called Syriac Aramaic, a dialectal variation of Aramaic that also developed its own script. Some parts of the Old Testament are written in Aramaic. We actually read from the Tab Asheret, which has been translated into the nearest English equivalent, so it's all Aramaic in that particular translation from those original manuscripts. It was also the language of Jesus and the prophet Mani. Well, he spoke Galilean Aramaic or Aramaic. The first Quran texts were also written in the Syriac Aramaic style that was used in Persia. Maybe that's why they say the Arabic is very similar to the Syriac. So these people should understand it, right? The Syriac. Syriac is a Semitic language, a dialect of Aramaic, and part of a language group to which also Canaanite, Phoenician or Punic, Hebrew and Arabic belong. It was an important Christian literary and liturgical language from the 3rd through the 7th century AD. Syriac was based on the East Aramaic dialect of Edessa. So that would be the Tab Asheret, Lishana Atika Saprea, which became one of the chief centers of Christianity in the Middle East at the end of the 2nd century AD. Several early Christian documents have only in copies made in Syriac. See also Aramaic language. Syriac is also the name of a writing system used by the Syriac Christians from the 1st century AD until about the 14th century. A Semitic alphabet, Syriac was an offshoot of the cursive Aramaic script. So that would be the Tab Asheret, the square script. Right? Syriac was used as writing medium and only for Aramaic, but not only for Aramaic, but also for Indian and Persian languages, such as Sogdian. The Arabic script is derived from Syriac, so it's probably a child language. It had 22 letters, all representing consonants, and was generally written from right to left, although occasionally vertically downward. There were several varieties of Syriac script. The oldest of these was Extrangular, which was in almost exclusive use until about 500 AD. A schism split in the Syriac church at the Council of Ephesus 431 resulted in the division of the Syriac language and script into two forms, Western and Eastern. The Western variety nearly died out under Muslim Arabic domination after the 7th century, but scattered communities of Syriac Christians survived, some of which continued to use the Syriac script. Documents of the Melchite sect of Palestinian Syrian state from as late as the 14th century. The Eastern or Nestorian script remained in use in East Central Asia, Siberia and China until the 13th or 14th century, as attested by inscriptions on gravestones in southern Siberia. And it goes on about Coptic. Coptic is an Afro-Asiatic language that was related to Semitic languages, and it was spoken in Egypt from about the 2nd century AD, because the Aramaeans were looking, they had the cuneiform, etc., the Syrians, and it was really hard to write, really difficult. So that probably trading with the Egyptians, they borrowed something from them. The Egyptians borrowed from them and changed their way of writing to Demotic. And then later on the Coptic writers adopted that. They changed to a Demotic script. Maybe they were influencing the Egyptians as well. We read it earlier. Coptic represents the final stages of the ancient Egyptian language, oh there you go, in contrast to earlier stages. Of Egyptian, which used hieroglyphic writing. Hieratic script or Demotic script, Coptic, was written in the Greek alphabet, supplemented by 7 letters borrowed from Demotic writing. Coptic also replaced the religious terms and expressions of earlier Egyptian with words borrowed from Greek. Numerous Christian documents have survived in Coptic, as Egypt had a rich literature industry. Most documents from Nag Hammadi, Egypt, such as the Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Judas, were published there in Coptic. And it has Phoenician down the bottom here. Phoenician is a Semitic language of the northern, central or northwestern group, spoken in ancient times on the coast of Syria and Palestine and Tyre, Sidon, Byblos and neighbouring towns, and in other areas of the Mediterranean, colonized by the Phoenicians. Phoenician is very close to Hebrew and Aramaic, and consequently Jews and their religion spread with the Phoenicians, with whom the Jews travelled west. The earliest Phoenician inscription probably dates from the 11th century BC. The latest inscription from Phoenicia proper is from the 1st century BC, when the language was already being superseded by Aramaic. It was being overtaken by it, or replaced. The Phoenician language spread to many of its colonies. In the North African city of Carthage, a later stage of the language known as Punic, a Roman word corruption of Phoenician, became the language of the Carthaginian Empire, like Hannibal, etc. Punic continued to be used by North African peasants until the 6th century AD. Phoenician words are found in classical Greek and Latin literature, as well as in writings in the Egyptian, Akkadian and Hebrew languages. The language is written with a 22-character alphabet that does not indicate vowels. The Phoenician writing system survived in the till, too sure what that word is, in the Tifinagh script of the Tuareg, who live in the southern Sahara. It's a desert, right? Hebrew is a Semitic language of the northern central, also called northwestern group. It is closely related to Phoenician. It was a descendant of the old Canaanite language. Spoken in ancient times in Palestine, Hebrew was almost entirely replaced by Aramaic, beginning about the 3rd century BC. Well, we're not too sure on that one, because Hebrew was spoken in the temples, everything holy, but Aramaic was spoken outside apparently for everything else. But if originally, if you look at the biblical Genesis account, and there's old maps, etc., if you read the Genesis account, you'll come to realise that everything started from that fertile crescent, or civilization, etc., because there was that one river that flowed from the Garden of Eden, and it split into 4 heads. This one river was watering all the plants, the trees, all that sort of stuff, right? And it split into 4 tributaries or 4 heads, and then they became the Gishon, or Gihon, the Pishon, the Euphrates, and the Tigris, and then they ended up flowing around supposedly Ethiopia, Mesopotamia, those areas, right? Probably ended up flowing into the Nile or something like that. Okay, so it all started there. So these people were, Abraham's people were speaking a certain language, Akkadian, etc. Aramaic is supposed to be from Syria, so it tells us that basically it started there. And then Hebrew wasn't really developed until later on, according to what we came across in Abraham's son's days. Was it Abraham's son or Jacob's son? Isaac. No, it's Abraham's, wasn't it? Yeah, because he sacrificed him. He was going to sacrifice him, right? Yeah. So it basically started in his day. What we read. Hebrew is a Semitic language of the northern central, also called northwestern group. It is closely related to Phoenician. It was a descendant of the old Canaanite language, or the Ugaritic. Because when Abraham and his descendants went into Canaan, the promised land of abundance, like milk and honey, they adopted their religion, their culture, their language. Yeah, so when they came out of it, they had that Canaanite Ugaritic language. Yeah? Like they scripted the name of God wrong, apparently. They used that pagan god El. Yeah? El is basically the definitive article. So we've come across something like that, right? You have to look up the definition of the. Right? So yeah, it was Elohim, right? They had Elohim or Elohim. Okay. The God with a little g, or maybe a big G, and the gods with a little g. Yeah. So that's what it basically meant. Very different to the Aramaic Elohim, which is Lohwem in spelling and meaning. So the original name of God was Il, E-I-L, not El. So yeah, when Hebrew was developed, maybe that was preferred and it replaced the Aramaic, but then later on the Aramaic replaced the Hebrew. It could have been something like that. Spoken in ancient times in Palestine, Hebrew was almost entirely replaced by Aramaic beginning about the 3rd century BC. The language continued to be used in it as a literal and literary language. However, it was revived as a spoken language in the 19th and 20th centuries. See? That's what we came across before. It was revised. There's the Greek atheist lady on YouTube that says the same thing. She says, yeah, it was originally the Canaanite Ugaritic language. In today's what they speak in Israel today is Israeli Hebrew, revised in the 1900s, early 19th century, as it says here. It was revived as a spoken language in the 19th and 20th centuries and is now the official language of Israel. Israel Hebrew. The greatest part of the Tanakh, the Old Testament, was written in Hebrew, and so was the deuterocanonical. And Arabic is a southern Semitic language spoken in a large area including North Africa, most of the Arabian Peninsula and other parts of the Middle East. See Afro-Asiatic languages. Arabic is the religious language of all Muslims and the language of the Islamic scripture such as the Quran or Quran, the recital, the Sirah, the biography of Muhammad, the Sirat Rasul Allah, the Hadith, the Islamic traditions, the law book of the Sharia, Umdat al-Salik, and the exegesis, the Tafsir al-Tabari. Literary Arabic, usually called classical Arabic, is essentially the form of the language found in the Quran. The Arabic script developed from Syriac. Before the times of Muhammad, there was no Arabic literature with the exception of business notes. See that word there, Arabic? It's got IC on the end of it. Yeah. That means it's a Greek word. They've added that they've given that and they've added this to the end of it. Okay, it's an N prefix. Same as the Syriac. Yeah, you took that C off, that IA there, N prefix, from the Greek, or Greek Latin. Okay. There was no Arabic literature with the exception of business notes. However, there were several translations of Christian texts in circulation.